Hi everyone, I recently went by myself to the cinema to watch the extended edition of Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring. Oh man, I haven't felt that much peace in such a long time. It made me feel so many emotions and reminded me of what it was like being sat there again as a 7-year-old watching that movie for the first time. I guess in this video I just wanted to sit here and talk to you guys about what it was like experiencing it in the cinema again. I think seeing it on a big screen just feels different. I was sat there getting reminded of certain feelings and thoughts that came into my head as a kid. For example, if I was being chased by Uruk-hai, would they still find me if I climbed up the Pillars of Kings? That is a very niche example actually, but let me try and explain to you what this movie did to me the first time I saw it, and hopefully you guys can relate. Let's go back to 2001. First of all, I was 7 or 8 years old when this movie first came out. That was the age I was when I first saw it in the cinema. I had never seen anything like it before. Some of you 90s kids might remember, but during this time we had movies like Harry Potter, the Star Wars prequels, and Lord of the Rings all dropping at the same time. Like, wow, what a time to be alive. Anyway, everything is all fun and games in my life up until that point, and I am living off The Simpsons essentially. And then I'm sat in the cinema and all of a sudden I'm hit with these goosebumps because Galadriel is speaking and suddenly it's dee 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 dee. I'm doing the intro of the movie, by the way. What am I doing? I was invested. The Last Alliance scene and a battle of that scale was something I had not seen before. One thing that always stuck with me and was repeated many times on the school playground over 20 years ago with me and my friends was the elves perfectly in sync. I remember being lined up with my mates trying to repeat it. I'm gonna be real too, but at that age, orcs were scary, like properly scary. Way scarier in my opinion than they were as CGI orcs in The Hobbit. Scary was good because scary got me invested, I was interested, and it was a beautiful contrast to the warm, fuzzy feelings I was experiencing when I first saw the Shire. It's a beautiful contrast in emotions. How can you not feel safe and at home during the opening Shire scenes? It was a relief to the younger me to go from this to this. What with the music and then being introduced to this father/grandfather figure in Gandalf, who everyone appears to love, even Proudfoot, who I think we all remember laughing at when we were younger.
But I cannot stay in the Shire.
No, it can't.
This was my first ever adventure movie. You know those movies and series where you can just sit back and watch a literal walk, a journey unfold before your eyes. That was my first experience of it. I was walking every single step with Frodo and Sam. I felt like I was there. Just off piece quickly, but I've got a core memory of being sat in the cinema for the first time with my parents watching this movie. I'm really small, they're either side of me, and this was the first time that music was causing me actual anticipation and even dread in some cases, because I knew if I heard dun 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 that the Uruk-hai and Saruman were likely going to be coming on the screen and I'd be watching through my fingers like this, or the eerie Black Rider music, you knew they were coming on if you heard it. So what I'm trying to say is, this was the first time that music gave me an idea of what was coming next, and probably the first time I felt actual emotion triggered from music too. Anyway, back to what I was saying. You have probably established by now that I was a little too young when I first saw this movie, but I'm so glad I was because it made me appreciate certain characters even more. So because I was a little spooked, it meant characters like Merry and Pippin made me feel better. The comedic aspect that they brought to the table. Same with Gimli. Gandalf was the holy grail. He was the embodiment of safety. I always wanted the hobbits to stay close to him. I think Aragorn actually shouts it when they're in the Mines of Moria.
Get back! Stay close to Gandalf!
That scene, by the way, and the suspense when the goblins are breaking through the door. I think I always saw things from the point of view of the hobbits hiding at the back. That's who I was relating to, because at that age I was small like them and I would have expected the warriors to step ahead of me. It makes the fall of Gandalf even more hard-hitting and emotional. I wanted the characters to be safe. I wanted Frodo, Sam, Merry and Pippin to all be okay. When Gandalf falls, it felt like you're losing a granddad or someone you look up to, the head of the family, the guidance. I remember being sat there and feeling really sad and heavy when they are grieving, and then that beautiful music is playing too. It's such a beautiful scene and I felt everything they could feel. At that time, I also did not fully trust Aragorn. He wasn't as warm as Gandalf when he eventually leads them on, so it just felt like such a big loss.
By nightfall, these hills will be swarming with orcs.
Outside of the gripping story, the imagery in this movie always encouraged my imagination to wander. I mentioned at the beginning of the video my thoughts of trying to hide on top of the Pillars of Kings. When I saw it on the big screen again, at that larger scale, it reminded me of thoughts that I had back then. It's like the cinema triggers these memories for me. For example, I remember looking past Bilbo and Frodo here thinking, could Frodo just walk over there if he wanted to? Would anyone ever find him? When Frodo and Sam had crossed the river, in the cinema, on the bigger screen, you can so clearly see Frodo and Sam in the trees running off into the distance. This was my first experience of FOMO. Like, I felt like I was missing out when we were sat in the perspective of Legolas, Gimli and Aragorn. I remember thinking, chase them then, come on, like, we're meant to be a fellowship here, come on, we're all together, please cross the river and follow them. Then there is Moria. I couldn't believe the size and scale of it, especially when the goblin archers are miles away up on the ledges firing their arrows. That scene hits different on the big screen.
You mean not to follow them? Frodo's fate is no longer in our hands.
I remember being little and looking up at the big screen, seeing the vast space that lay ahead of Frodo and Sam. I was so there. I was ready to pack my bags and go with them all the way to the fires of Mordor, only for the movie to end. And rightly so, it had to end there, but I was gutted. This was the first movie I had seen where the ending wasn't obvious. I was desperate to know what was going to happen next. At that age, I was not aware of the whole trilogy aspect to it. When that movie ended though and I left the cinema, the Lord of the Rings floodgates opened and my life changed. We had Lord of the Rings Warhammer, the PlayStation 2 games. I remember being sat in front of my little square telly, rewinding the VHS tapes back to the spots that I loved to watch the most. I will always be grateful for the Lord of the Rings franchise. Thank you, Tolkien. And thank you guys for watching. I really appreciate your time. Drop me a like and subscribe if you're new, and I will see you soon.